Lie still and break, for a dream's sake. Chapter 9. The next day, Nezu slaps a watch on Shota's wrist as he comes through the door of the staff lounge. With his usual cheerful, pragmatic delivery, he explains that Shota can now be physically alone again. The watch will monitor his heart, alert Nezu in the nearest hospital if it falters, and can shock start it if it stops. Shota stutters and thanks him sincerely, causing the animal's tail to swish happily. In the privacy of his thoughts, Shota's respect for the Chimera grows even further. Undoubtedly, while Nezu is a being with a terrifying intelligence who doesn't always see fit to comply with societal conventions, he is still a hero. A being driven by the need to help, to save, all the more empathetic for having suffered himself and for seeing more than others do. Thank you, Nezu-sensei. Nezu's ears perk up in pleased surprise at the sudden emergence of a title Shota had long forgone. You've gone above and beyond. Plus ultra, Aizawa-kun! Nezu only smiles. He can be unreadable when he wants to, but sometimes he lets a privileged few glimpse beyond that, and right now Shota can tell he's touched. Face burning, Shota excuses himself to class. He buries his chin in his capture weapon as he stalks the corridors. No need to broadcast the hodgepodge of emotions he's feeling at the moment. Nezu is able to see straight through Shota and what he longed for most. And Shota's life can now gravitate once again around the three things that keep him sane. His students, his space, his sleep. In the evening, Shota goes back home with a victorious feeling in his heart. His students are okay. Well, 2 will be eventually. He has no lasting damage from his stay in the neurological ward. Nezu's gone the extra 1,000 miles, setting up precautions against further villain attacks at UA. And Shota's apartment is empty, save for Squiggles. He cuddles with his cat, slouches on his couch and naps for an hour, makes himself coffee. Goddamn heavenly coffee. How has he gone so long without it? His cup sits empty as he looks up at the clock. He can't patrol yet. Only a few more days until he can be cleared, but that's fine. Surely it's a good excuse for him to finally catch up on all the other aspects of life that usually fall by the wayside. A half hour later, he's remembered he's already on top of his paperwork, and he hasn't been patrolling, which cuts his paperwork significantly. His fridge is stocked full of food he doesn't quite recall how to cook. His apartment is tidy. Squiggles has food and a clean litter box. Shota ends up picking up an English language novel Hisashi left behind. It's deceptive, hiding twists and depth under easy writing, but it's also too short. It takes him all of 2 hours to read it. When he looks up, the apartment is quiet, save for Squiggles scratching at his post. Shota finds himself humming to fill the silence. He has a strange impression of floating, of waiting. He wakes up a few times during the night with that unsettling feeling of something missing, even more than in recent days. Am I missing Hisashi? Somehow or other, Shota had got used to his presence, to having someone there. A part of him is thrilled to be on his own again, to have space just for him, to be able to give his undivided attention to whatever he wants to. Yet another part of him waits. When he finally gives up on sleep, Shota looks at his phone. He pulls up the contact list, finds Hisashi's name card. He stares at it for 5 long minutes, then leaves the phone on his nightstand as he rises. Skin tingling, he pads to the living room. He sits in front of the window, staring at Musutafu's night lights. It's 3 a.m, and if he squints, he can believe himself on patrol. He can see the roofs stretching under him. He can hear the quiet roar of lone cars out at this time, the rustle of leaves, the occasional burst of loud conversation, and louder laughter as young people enjoy being young and older people chase their youth in a night out. It's a quiet patrol, Shota's fictional one of the few where villains stay in, where he doesn't have an active case to investigate, where the city belongs to him, and him alone. Yes, with his eyes shut he can feel the wind cutting him to ribbons, slinking across his ribs like a caress from a lover. And under it all, he can hear the silence of the night. He can breathe and fall asleep. 3 days later, Shota stumbles home, dead on his feet. He's completed his first patrol since the USJ. As if to prove that underground heroes are sorely needed, that Eraserhead's presence or absence does make a difference, the villains have not given him a damn break. He's collected bruises and minor cuts and only avoided worse through sheer dumb luck. He's out of practice and out of breath, but at least he's back now. Shota Aizawa, Underground pro hero Eraserhead is back on his feet, and under the exhaustion, he can't help but feel a little proud. Still, a full day of class and a busy patrol have left him high-strung. His thoughts are firing every which way. They circle and dip, ready to swoop on him like birds of prey. There's so much to do. He's lost so much time. At least he's still alive, he can still help, but he needs to be better. He needs to train, he needs to check on Todoroki's tutoring sessions, he needs to remember this in the morning, he needs to stop being so forgetful. Overstimulation, Nezu supplies clinically in his mind. The best cure for that is probably to sleep it off. Shota shouldn't be surprised that he gets a nightmare. In a tense-filled dream, he's standing in the hallway of Hinohara Hospital. A low alarm thrums through his body and he starts walking before he's even aware of himself. His body in the dream world is translucent and he's not moving like physical humans do, and Shota is aware that he should be surprised at it, that perhaps he should pause and examine this more closely. But it all feels familiar and there's that nagging whisper in his veins urging him on. Look for it, quickly, look carefully or you'll miss it. He phases through walls, looking through each room one after the other. It's incredible, really, how his mind provides details to those rooms. The red vase of pink peonies at Miss Tanaka's bedside, the janitor's methodic sweeping of the floors, the silence of the morgue and the bustle of the canteen, the alarm on the ER surgeon's face as he starts chest compressions on his patient. By all rights, things should be soft and undefined, malleable, but they are not. They're incredibly clear. Shota knows it's a dream. He knows he hasn't visited any of these rooms. And yet, Shota has been there and remembers every detail. Except there's that one thing he's forgotten, and if he can just find it... Too late. You'll be too late. Hurry! Alarm's given way to panic now, and Shota's slamming his way through the rooms fast and faster, only maintaining a handle on it through long years of keeping his shit together. He ends up bursting through the door to the roof, ghostly momentum carrying through several steps before he registers that someone's there. A silhouette. A short silhouette with green hair. A kid. 13 or so? The kid's back is turned, he's facing the edge of the roof. Shota can only guess at his expression. He can only guess what led him up those stairs to gaze at a roof's edge. Shota goes to speak, reaches out with a hand, but the kid is turning away. Thank God. He's turning away from the roof, but also away from Shota. The kid disappears, and Shota's tearing through the hospital again. He knows now that he's not forgotten something, but someone. Someone important, someone lonely, someone he's been helped and saved by, whom he wants to help and save. Then Shota is standing in front of a door which stands askew. It's a familiar door that he's passed in front of during his stay in the ward, which he never really paid attention to. It's also a familiar door, which holds behind it an ocean. Enough knowledge and emotion to sweep him away, to change him forever, to drown him and perhaps, carry him ashore. It's a door whose threshold he doesn't want to cross, but he thinks he needs to. Shota wakes. And, in between one moment and the next, Shota remembers. For an instant he gasps, ragged breath rasping in his throat. His fingers clutch at his blanket with a compulsive need to hold on. He can't afford to let this knowledge slip from his mind like a dismissed dream. Midoriya! Then he springs up and lunges for his phone. With shaking, fumbling fingers, he pulls up the recording app and records a message. He sends it to himself, just in case. His phone beeps, an objective confirmation that this is real, that he did and does remember, that he will be able to retain the most important bit even if his mind forgets again. Shota finally breathes. He lays his hands on his face, falls back against his mattress, passes a trembling hand over Squiggles, who mews plaintively. He should probably go back to sleep, but he doesn't want to. He's afraid of what may happen if he does. Midoriya. God, how could I have forgotten him? It's been so long. Weeks all on his own. Shota thinks back to his first moments of wakefulness in the hospital. He'd dismissed it as a pain-fueled fever dream or a hallucination, but there had been a green-haired boy at the foot of his bed that first night, hadn't there? Midoriya must have stayed long enough to check that Shota was awake and well, and that Shota had forgotten him. And then he'd ducked out, kept himself away, probably to let Shota focus on his recovery without freaking out over seeing a ghost, and to spare his own broken heart.
He's alone again.
The aspects of his vivid dream are blurring now, fading, leaving room and space for his actual memories of being a coma ghost. But he remembers the silhouette, standing forlorn on the roof.
He's all on his own.
Shota swings his legs over the side of the bed, reaching for his hero costume.
Never again. Not if I can help it.
It's not quite 6 in the morning, but Shota doesn't give a damn. For the first time of his teaching career, he texts Nezu and calls in sick. Then he takes the nearest subway train headed for Hinohara Hospital. Standing and swaying in the wagon, he downs a couple jelly pouches. He doesn't really have the stomach for anything else. His heart beats loud in his chest, his palms are clammy. He hasn't felt this nervous since his first press conference. His mind threatens to overspill with worries. So Shota keeps his thoughts corralled and on the goal, and forces himself to focus on something productive. He feigns sleep, but under his eyelashes he tries to dissect the quirks of the early commuters in the wagon with him. He wonders what Midoriya would think of them.
Will I even get to ask?
He's just come out of the subway station, weaving through the morning throng, when his phone rings. Shota picks up without looking at the caller, turning to the street leading down to the hospital. It's Hisashi. Hey, Sho, you doing okay? Nezu said you were sick, so I thought I'd swing by your apartment to check in, but where are you? I'm at the hospital. What? Hisashi's voice has gone toneless with worry. The hospital? Sho, are you... I'm okay, Zashi. Are you sure? Do you need me to... I'm okay, Zashi. Shota repeats more slowly. He thinks of what concerns a declaration like this from Hisashi might have woken in him if the situation were reversed. Patiently he addresses them all. I'm not in pain. I don't have any after effects. No symptoms of any kind. I'm not seeing my doctor. I'm not here for me. I just need to be here today, okay? Okay. The silence between them is pregnant with unasked questions, unsaid thoughts, unspoken feelings. Shota can tell Hisashi is worried by the soft swish of his breath against the microphone. The hospital is in sight. Thanks, for calling. Shota clears his throat, finding it inexplicably tight. I'll explain. Someday I'll explain it to you. Right now, there's just this thing I have to do. Alright. Just take care, yeah? Shota thinks of Midoriya. Precisely. He hangs up. For a moment, he looks up at this hospital he's grown to know almost as intimately as he knows UA, haunting its halls over the space of 3 days and as many nights. He thinks of a ghost boy, alone and lonely, and so bright. A sunshine of a boy, insubstantial as the moonlight. Shota takes a breath, squares his shoulders, and he goes in. The boy's room is empty. Well, not empty, but the only inhabitant is a comatose body, and Shota knows better now than to think it houses Midoriya's consciousness. It's a shell, giving a very credible impression of being alive. It is alive, it's just not Midoriya.
Until he wakes up. If he ever does.
For an instant, Shota's hand hovers above the medical chart, but he folds his fingers and turns away. It isn't that he doesn't need to know, or that he doesn't want to. It's that there is a trust between Midoriya and him, and he doesn't want to break it. And there is time. If indeed Shota can see him, then they have time. Time to ask, time to answer, time to process, time to learn and grow and heal. Time to have all the discussions they'd been ignoring when there had been a looming end in sight. Shota leaves the steady beeps of the machine behind and tentatively makes his way down the corridor. By all rights, he should have been pulled aside and questioned, but a quick flash of his hero license to the secretary had secured him entry. His underground hero aura makes it easy to fade in the background, even in the middle of a hospital corridor. Today is a busy day in the ER, but this is the quiet part of the neurological ward, and most of the doctors and nurses have been called to help downstairs. Shota turns a corner and finds himself alone. And then he finds Izuku. The boy is standing in a patch of sunlight, iridescent where his translucent form meets the light. He looks half-faded, like perhaps he doesn't really belong here.
In between.
Only now that Shota is alive and corporeal does he realize how fragile a coma ghost looks like. Midoriya turns, catches sight of him. For a brief moment, surprise lights his face. It's quickly drowned by a wistful, heartbroken look. He doesn't temper his expression. Perhaps, if he knew Shota could see it, Midoriya would school his face. But it's been a year since he's had to hide his emotions from a living, breathing person, and so his face is twisted with the rawest emotion that just keeps battering at Shota's heart. "Izuku," Shota says, looking straight at the ghost. Their eyes meet. Midoriya's widen. His face cycles through emotions faster than Shota can keep up, before setting into the painful lines of worry hope. "Sensei?"
"Hi."
"Aizawa-san, it's you!"
"It's me, kid."
Shota smiles. It comes out more crooked than it had in his ghost form. He's back in his actual body after all, not the mental image he has of it, but it does the trick. Midoriya's shoulders relax, and the kid smiles back, suffused with unbridled joy. "Sensei!" Midoriya cannonballs towards Shota. The kid goes through him, of course. And damn it, Shota knew. He knew he wouldn't be able to touch the ghost, but he'd hoped.
"Don't ruin this moment for him."
Shota straightens. For a single second, he allows himself to long for a hug that he will never be able to give. Then he flexes his hands at his sides and shoves them, trembling, into his pockets. The kid's form hovers close.
"This has to be enough. It will be enough."
"Aizawa-san, oh my god, how are you here? And you see me and hear me, that's normal, but you know me too, which isn't normal, and it's never happened before." Midoriya's mumbling grinds to a halt, and the boy is looking up into Shota's eyes, swaying softly as he observes his face, his posture, his body. "You're not in another coma, are you? You're all right. You're okay?"
Trust the kid to think of someone else first after having been on his own for weeks.
"I'm okay, kid. I'm alive. Thanks to you." Oh! Midoriya's smile wavers. "You do remember."
"Yeah, I remember."
Tears make their way down the kid's cheeks. Midoriya startles as if surprised and wipes away a few. I'm so happy, Sensei, he blubbers as if he had to justify his crying to Shota. "I'm so happy." Izuku breaks down into sobs. The kid is happy, Shota knows. He is happy and relieved and grateful, but he's also entirely heartbroken all over again. Pleasure shared is doubled, pain shared is halved.
But until now, there wasn't anyone to share this pain with.
Shota wishes with all his being that he could put his hand on Midoriya's head, the way he had when they'd only just met, when he'd taken a vow he'd been made to forget, a vow he'll never let himself forget again.
"I'll care for you, for as long as I'm able to."
But Midoriya is in between. There is no reaching across the worlds that lay between them. Well, fine. Shota can't give physical comfort, but he can damn well try his best with the other kind. Gently, he squats on his heels and looks up into the face of his beautiful, bright, broken-hearted kid. "I remember you, Midoriya Izuku," he whispers to the sobbing boy. He makes another vow. "And I will never forget you again." End of Chapter 9. Podficker's Notes. Music credits for Chapter 9. Excerpt from This Time I Won't Forget by Congos. We finally get them reunited. This is one of my favorite chapters. I really do enjoy how the authors have written this realization part. We've gotten hints of Shota thinking that he's forgotten something, thinking that he's missing something, but here we actually have the full light bulb moment where he finally remembers. I also really love the conversation with Hisashi, where we see that character growth that Shota has internalized, that Hisashi really does care for him, and does that exercise of thinking, well, if Hisashi was saying this to me, if Hisashi had been in the hospital and was saying that, oh, he was taking a sick day and he was going back to the hospital, what would I want to know? And so he goes through that list of information he would want to know to give it to Hisashi. I find that part particularly sweet. I love the visual of Shota walking down this sunlit corridor towards Izuku at the end, who's still translucent, and thinking about what Izuku must be feeling in this moment is pretty heartbreaking, because he's finally seeing someone again, but the only options are that, as far as he knows, that they've forgotten him and are either coming back just for a checkup, or there's something wrong, or that Shota's fallen back into a coma. And so thinking about the awful position he's put in is pretty sad, but I'm really, really glad that he gets to finally see Shota again. If you've enjoyed this chapter, please let the original author know. If you've enjoyed listening to this podfic, please let me know. Thanks for joining.